Well, welcome to Old Classic Car. Now we've got a video with a little bit of a difference here, because this time I'm going to tell a little story, mainly for Harley's benefit, so he understands a little bit of where I've come from and why I am like I am. But this goes back to the early 1980s and explains in a little bit of detail how my passion for collecting old car hubcaps in the 1970s and early 1980s led to me being handcuffed to a tree by an officer of the law all those years ago. Today we are in Brookfield Park, and this is the scene of this great event. So let's carry on and take the story up from here. So back in the 1970s I lived here in Cheadle, and I lived here until 1998. But in the 1970s my main interests were as follows: aircraft. Because we live on the flight path to Manchester Airport, what was Ringway, way back in the 1930s, so an interest in aircraft was always going to happen. Plus Dad's really into his old aeroplanes, so yeah, air shows, visits to the airport, that was always going to be a factor of my life growing up here in Cheadle. Secondly, motorcycles. I always had a bit of a thing for motorcycles. Occasionally we'd go to an off-road scramble somewhere, and my uncle was very much continuing the family tradition on his side of the family of being interested in old British bikes. Hence the video I did many years ago on our old Velocets. That's probably the first, or one of the very first videos that ever went onto this channel in about 2010, somewhere around about then. So it's aircraft, motorcycles, and of course cars. Cars have always been a bit of a thing. Dad's always been working and tinkering on his cars in the garage, and it was inevitable that I would get to love the old cars. When I did the show and tell at Cheadle Primary School back in the 1970s, everyone else was bringing little knickknacks from their house to talk about, and I brought in a 49cc motor Bacane engine from our rally runabout moped. So yeah, this sickness and passion for all things with engines in started a very long time ago now. So yes, this is Brookfield Park. We always used to come playing here, riding our bikes around and so on. But it was my interest in collecting old bits of cars that got me in a little bit of trouble, as I will now try to explain. As I mentioned before, collecting car hubcaps was something that I did from a very young age. The old chrome hubcaps, they would often ping off a car's wheels when, say, if you were turning around and you clipped a curb, the hubcap would fly off, and the first you'd know about it is when you got home and noticed that it was missing. And walking to and from school every day, I often used to see hubcaps on the corner of the road, and I would start to collect them, clean them up and hang them up on my bedroom wall. So if you ever wonder why the garage at home looks like it does, it goes back quite a long way. But it was this interest in shiny old chrome hubcaps that caused, if you like, the particular problem I had, which led to me being handcuffed to a tree just over the back over there somewhere. So let's go and have a wander over there and see where this all happened.
Why do you bring me to these places?
Now just over the back there is the river, and that goes around over here and under a bridge just over here. So we'll go back to the main road and I'll explain a little bit more about how this story began. This was back in 1982, I think probably the summer of 1982, during the school holidays. And we were down here, where are we going to go? Let's go up here. The path less trodden, but when I was here it was a lot more open than it is now. Like I say, I'm really doing this video for Harley, he says smoothly, trying not to get torn up to pieces by brambles. Right, here is the bridge, and here is the main road. That's the road into Cheadle down there. That's Broadway over there, that's where I used to go riding to school. But here is the bridge, and back in the 70s and early 1980s, this bridge, the wall wasn't as high as you see it now. The Downs Bridge, now reconstructed in 2000. But we were hanging around down here, looking down in the river, and over there, that is where we spotted the shining presence of something in the water, and being an ardent collector of hubcaps, I thought there were some hubcaps down there. So we sped along here in our youthful exuberance at the age of 11, and we cut down here into Brookfield Park through the side entrance and headed down to the riverbank. Like I say, it wasn't as overgrown as it is now, but down here is where we spotted something shining in the water, and I was pretty sure we were looking at some old car hubcaps. So a plot was formed to try and retrieve these hubcaps. The water wasn't as high as it is today, but yeah, there was a shining in there. It was a nice warm sunny day in the summer of 1982. So my mate who I was with, I'll call him JB because I don't know if he'd want his name mentioned fully here, so we'll call him JB. So I spotted these things and he kindly volunteered to go into the water and retrieve these, what we were thought were hubcaps, but weren't actually, as I will now explain. So several minutes were spent down here. I don't remember the bank being quite as high as this. I think it was a bit more graduated, so we could actually get into the water. And these shiny things were retrieved, but we soon realised that we weren't looking at car hubcaps. What we were looking at were some ancient plates, various items, plates and an old chalice, all of them silver, and we thought this seems very, very unusual indeed. So rather than just lob them back in, which is probably something we did consider doing, we thought, well, someone's probably missing these, so we better go and report it. So we took them back home. I took them to go and see Mum, and she phoned the local police because we assumed that these had been stolen from somewhere, and that was actually the case. So this was reported to the local police, and they asked us to come and show them where it was that we found these particular items of silver, because it's not the usual place to find some nice ancient pieces of silver just lobbed into the river close to the bridge here. Now, as I said before, this was a lot more open than it is now. There's a lot of new trees have grown up, but back then it was fairly clear, and we walked across here with maybe a couple of policemen, something like that. And no, I don't quite remember why. Maybe I was being a little bit cheeky or a little bit lippy.
Transit just went past.
What?
Mark II Transit.
Mark II Transit?
Yeah. It was.
Was it?
I think it was, yeah.
Oh, well spotted. Anyway, back to the story. So we were walking across here with the policeman, and there was me and my mate JB, and we were going to go and show the police where we'd found these items of silver. Now, whether I was being lippy or giving him a bit of cheek, I'm not quite sure, but for some reason he decided to handcuff me to a tree, which is, it'll be over there, somewhere over the back, over there. Like I say, it's a bit brambly around here. Yeah. But it would have been a tree. It was a fairly tall tree, because I remember being my arm quite high up in the air, so I couldn't actually stand properly. And I was probably left there for about 10 minutes or so, while my mate JB and the policeman headed down to the river to go and see.
Oh, is he not being mischievous?
No, he wasn't being mischievous. It was just me for some reason.
Why?
I know, I was probably being a little bit lippy, something like that. So, yeah, so he came down here and showed the members of the police where we had found these silver items. All the while, I was probably 50 yards over that way, handcuffed to a tree. So my interest in old car hubcaps led to us finding these old plates and the chalice, etc., dumped in the river here. And because I was being lippy, I ended up being handcuffed to a tree, which was all very, very unfortunate, but maybe I deserved it. I can't remember. That was over 40 years ago. Investigations actually revealed that these items of silver had been stolen from a church in Cheadle some weeks before, and for some reason the ne'er-do-wells, the tow rags that stole this from the church, decided to chuck them over the bridge here and into the river. They were clearly of no use to them at all, which was all very strange. But it actually turned out that the church itself thought everything was solid silver. The plates, the chalice, the lid, and a few other bits and bobs. But it turned out it wasn't actually the case. Most of it was silver plates. The only solid silver item was the chalice lid, and we never found that. It may still even be in there, or perhaps the thieving tow rags that stole them from the church recognised that and just hung on to the chalice lid and threw the relatively worthless plated silver items into the river here. Who knows? I'm not quite sure. But either way, this is where we found it, and that is a story of how we found it and how my passion back in the 70s and early 80s for collecting bits of old car junk led to us finding these church items. The church was very pleased to receive these items, and in fact we made it onto the front of the local newspaper. This was about where it was, handcuffed to a tree, all very, very uncomfortably, about 50 yards from the river. But here we have a copy of the newspaper article from 1982. Heroes.
Who's that?
That's me there. So, conquering heroes dig up stolen silver. Now I won't read you everything, but I'll just read a couple of paragraphs, and this will explain to Harley maybe why I am like I am and why he is now how he is. So the article begins. Schoolboy Richard Jones, more, eyes lit up when he spotted the glint of silver in the river near his home. As a keen collector of scrap, he thought he'd found a real gem to add to his collection, a car hubcap perhaps. Excitedly, 11-year-old Richard and his friend JB waded into the river near their home in Cheadle to fish it out. But their find turned out to be even more valuable, a haul of silver stolen from a Cheadle church earlier this year. There's a little bit more information now. The silver, a chalice and 6 plates is back where it belongs, at the church in Massey Street in Cheadle, and safely under lock and key. The chalice is very battered and the plates are very tarnished, but they can certainly be restored and cleaned, and we are very, very pleased to get them back, said the minister. The silver is believed to be worth several hundreds of pounds, though its age and history are uncertain. It was stolen from the church in June of this year.
What year would that be?
That was 1982, this was. So it'd be the summer of 1982 during the school holidays, I would have thought. Then they had a bit of a chat with Mum back at base just over there. Richard's mother said, "They love collecting bits of old cars and bikes. Richard cleans and polishes them and puts them on his bedroom wall." The boys were stunned when they waded in and found the silver. They rushed home and were delighted when they found out what it was, she said. So there you go. That is how my interest in collecting old car hubcaps and grills and all that kind of junk 40 plus years ago led to my collecting habit, which is still going nice and strong today, and Harley is following in my footsteps. So there's just a little story of hubcaps to handcuffs. I hope that was of interest. It's a bit of a different video, I know, but hopefully you managed to stick with it. Hopefully it won't be too long. So thanks very much. Please like, subscribe, all that kind of thing. Let me know in the comments if you've ever found anything interesting in the river, and there'll be many more videos along very, very soon. So bye for now.